Hey guys, how's it going? Michael Troy here. I am so excited today. This conversation is long overdue. One of my favorite artists is joining me today. We are here to talk about the exciting Kickstarter that he has launching, probably launched by the time I release this video, says because this video is directly to support that. However, we are going to talk about other things like his work on my Big Bang anthology, which is our first big collab together. And we
Yeah.
have some other mutual interests like Lady Gaga and Jason Pearson that are on the docket to talk about. So without further ado, welcome to the comic chat on Michael Fitzgerald TV. How are you doing, Todd Blackwood? Nice to
Uh,
see you.
You too, Michael. It's super exciting to finally chat in person. Like we message each other all the time. But yeah, this is great. I'm very happy to be here.
Yeah, I think when I discovered you, your talent was like
Yeah.
pretty obvious to me. However, I didn't realize how kind of much involvement you had already had in the comic book industry and the stuff you had worked on. So
Sure.
where did you get your start, and like what are some of the things that you had worked on in the past?
Well, I was self-taught. I got in the door at Dark Horse when I was like 19. I was really young, and basically I worked really hard to get a job penciling an 8-page feature in Dark Horse Presents, and the other artist, the inker, had to clean it up a lot and do a lot of fixing, and I basically thought my career was starting, and then it face planted.
Yeah, I think
So
that's an interesting thing to talk about because
yeah.
because just because you get your first job, you're always looking for your next job. How did you get that
Uh,
first job? Was it sending in samples or going to a convention?
no, actually, Dave Stevens saw my work at a convention in Portland, and he literally took me over to the Dark Horse booth and said, "Give this guy work." Uh,
Wow,
yeah,
that
I was like floored.
what
Uh,
an endorsement. I mean, you can't even,
yeah,
wow. I mean, just to even meet Dave Stevens and, the great Dave Stevens, who doesn't love his beautiful
no,
art. I love his art and his legacy. And just to
yeah,
meet him must have been fascinating. And then have him like give you your first job at Dark Horse. That's a pretty amazing foot in the
yeah.
door for comic books, I'd say there. So
Yeah.
what happened after that? Why did it fall flat?
Well, so he didn't get me my first job. He said, give this guy work," and they said, "Well, we don't think he's quite ready yet." So they made me do a bunch of tryouts, which was fine. I basically didn't know how the whole thing worked. I just thought, oh, if I do good enough samples, I'll cross the finish line. I kept thinking the start of the race was the end of the race, or no, the end of, yeah, you know what I mean? I kept thinking I'd made it, and it was like, no, it's just starting. And I
Right.
went over my head right away. So I ended up getting a job in their production department for about a year and a half or so. And then I kind of fell accidentally into stop action animation at what's now Leica, but back then was called Will Vinton. So I ended up working in television for a while. That's really where I learned how to draw. I was surrounded. We talk about this, Mars Attacks, the
Uh,
artist there.
I don't think we did. No.
Yeah. The guy who designed, so Mars Attacks was going to be a stop action feature before they decided to go CGI. And I think the basic team left that production, like got, fired off of it, came up to Portland, and I ended up meeting the main producers and artists, and this one guy, Colin Patty, he was incredible. I'd never seen an artist like that before. What's interesting is that there's a couple of features of shorts on YouTube of short animated stop action features that he designed that were huge influences on me. And it took me a little while to put two and two together and realize this was the guy who made that stuff. There's one, it's called The Sandman, and I really recommend anybody checking it out. But anyways, being up close and seeing somebody draw that never made mistakes, and it didn't look anything like comic book art at that point. At that point, everybody was kind of drawing like an Adam Hughes type stuff, Dave Stevens. So at that point, I fit into that. but my influences were really starting to broaden. But I had all those contacts in comics, specifically at Dark Horse, and at that point they saw my work improving and were like, when would you should come back and draw some comics. And so I realized I liked but didn't love. I love animation, didn't like working in it necessarily, but it did also teach me how to tell a story. So I went back to Dark Horse and did a prequel to John Carpenter's The Fog, and also a book with Mike Richardson called Cut, as well as I worked for Dynamite and Boom. I did a prequel, like weirdly enough, the thing I was most proud of was a sequel to The Warriors, that old cult classic. It's called Warriors Jailbreak. It's impossible to find now, but I got to meet all the actors from the film, who really loved it, surprisingly. And it was like all my closest friends I got to work with on it. And to this day, I'm really proud of it. But you'd never recognize my end of it, although it was more collaborative than directly like penciling. I was laying it out and the basic concept I had in my head for a long time from watching the movie. Um, so, anyways, for whatever reason, things kind of imploded again for me at comics, or I hit a wall, and I got to a point where I couldn't figure out how to improve. Um, and I was not making a whole lot of money and decided to just like start over and retool, because the only other option was to quit. And to this day, I don't know why I didn't. But I'm glad I didn't, because I at that point I was pretty convinced I wasn't a very good artist and I didn't have it in me. But for some reason, I changed my mind and rediscovered what I loved about comics. That was when my passion really came back. And all at that point, drawing up to that point had been a real chore for me. It was something I could do for a living, but it was made me kind of miserable and maybe a little embarrassed. And I think that at that point, maybe around 2013, 2015 is when I started drawing pages that I thought, oh, this is what I thought I was capable of, but had almost given up on. It was starting to really show through, and I was still drawing by hand at that point. I only went digital about maybe 5 years ago. So it's been a little while, maybe a little longer than that. I forget. The pandemic's kind of made everybody lose track of time, especially me.
Isn't it weird? I know I
I know,
feel
right?
definitely affected. I thought daylight savings time screwed me up. That really did a number on me.
Well, we're gonna fall back soon. It's my favorite
Oh gosh, I can't wait.
now, right?
Um, yeah, because you work primarily digitally now, so your
Yeah.
initial thought or desire was to be like a penciler, I suppose.
Yeah, but my interests were very different from what I was capable of up until a certain point, and I think that's where I started thinking. I had all these influences that I couldn't figure out how to incorporate into my work, and one of the criticisms I heard was that my style was very all over the place. I love underground comics as much as I do mainstream, and um, mainstream stuff. What my problem with mainstream comics is I think on some level worried I was going to get stuck. Like, this is the only way I can draw. And
Hmm.
I love an artist like John Buscema, who's one of the greatest draftsmen that's ever worked in comics, but like he always drew the same way, and I didn't think I was going to bring anything to the table by being. I'll never be as good as he was, but like, I knew that wasn't the passion for me, the my place in comics. I knew I had stories to tell. So in that sense, I mean, I was always fascinated by how Frank Miller was like not so good as a draftsman, and yet I was more interested in his work than other people, even though the drawing could really get wonky at times. And I thought, why is that? That's really interesting. Um, Sorry if I'm rambling.
No, you're not at all.
Talker.
It's very interesting. Well, because I think, but it's not just about being a good artist when it comes to comic books. It's about being a good comic book storyteller. And
Yeah.
Frank, and there are a few people who can top Frank when it comes to telling a really good comic book story. So
Yeah.
I think that it's also interesting listening to you talk because I think that comics is one of those unique platforms where we have seen the evolution of several different artists, whether it be them coming
Right.
onto the scene. That's what I loved about old back in the day or old school kind of comics that you saw someone like a John Byrne or a George Perez coming
Mm-hmm.
in and a little unpolished, but the potential is there, the appeal
Mm,
is there, and then just see them, month after month just get better and better and just like up
oh,
the ante and evolve style wise, and just coming
yeah.
into their own style. But then you have someone like Keith Giffen who will experiment with his style and completely change it up. You have
Yep.
someone like Bill Sienkiewicz who comes into the
Yeah.
industry as a Neil Adams clone. And now talk about an
Yeah. Right.
inconsistent style. Like try nailing down Bill Sienkiewicz's style and who would want to. So I think that the industry and the art form is definitely more open to sort of like an anything goes kind of situation. I love an artist who holds a good gag, like a serious artist,
Oh,
and then suddenly you're getting like Tex Avery eyes or something like that. You know what I mean? Keep me
yeah.
guessing,
Right.
keep me surprised. If you're entertained as an artist, chances are I'm entertained as an audience member
Yeah.
or a reader, I should say. I always do that when I'm sorry.
All good.
So then, because it was quite the glow up in your style, probably when you switched to digital. Do you think that is when your art really turned a corner for you, or like it made it different, or
Yes and no. It actually turned the corner before I went digital, and I could send you some more before and afters. But I had, I left Helioscope recently because Helioscope, the
Mhm.
they moved, so the location wasn't quite as convenient. But I love those guys, but they were always cool about letting me come down and hang out before I was a member, and I kept seeing people printing out their blue lines and then drawing from them. And I just had this real feeling that I was behind the times and needed to get caught up with the modern world, so to speak. And that was my only goal when I went digital was to print out my blue lines and then ink them by hand. But I just I realized I had so many tools at my disposal. It was almost like going from a harmonica to a you know oh shoot, I just lost the right word I was trying to
to bagpipes? No, I'm
synthesize.
just kidding.
No, electric guitar.
Okay.
It was a big leap forward, and I could do so much with everything at my fingertips. And I had started painting before that, and which was awesome, but it was so much work, masking things off. I had paint all over me, and my nephew was over. I'll never forget this. And I loved seeing how interested he was in what I was doing. And so I was like, oh, I'm going to show him this jar of blue ink. And I tripped and I got it all over my carpet. And I was just like, God damn it. And this voice in my head kept going, you could do all this digitally and you wouldn't be making a mess right now. I spent half my
Mhm.
time trying to figure out where my ruler went. Kid you not. I mean, it was constantly like, wait, where did that thing go that I was using or
I
whatever?
know. I know exactly. Yeah, like I feel that because I primarily draw digitally now, and like just the thought of like
You,
yeah, looking for erasers and sharpeners and ink and just clean up and blah blah blah. Yeah, it's just because I'm always drawing on the fly these days anyway, which I shouldn't be doing.
mm,
I should be making more time for art, as every artist should. It's sad that we don't, but
drawing on the fly is cool.
yeah.
That's how I learned how to tell a story, actually.
That's how you learn how to draw.
Yeah. Well, no, no. So I didn't understand the concept of they're always like, well, your art's really nice, but you got a little work to do with your storytelling. And I was like, at that point, I thought, well, the drawing will be so good that the storytelling won't matter, which I really didn't understand the concept. So when I worked in animation, I quickly realized that because we were trying to tell jokes, that was primarily it was comedy and humor, And when my drawings didn't make people laugh, it was a very intuitive, sudden realization. What I was really seeing was seeing my material get tested, and it was fake,
Mhm.
but I immediately knew what to change. And so one of the things I used to do in social situations was I would draw gags on napkins and then and do them when no one was looking and flip them under someone's nose and when they weren't looking, and then I would wait, and when they looked down I would see if their laugh was genuine or if it was like, oh, that's really funny, because that means it's not funny. What I
Mhm.
wanted was them to laugh. Kids are the best audience because kids either they think it's hilarious or they're like, that's not funny. But it's such an honest reaction, and I think it's comedians do that. They test their material before they go out on the road, and that's what I was doing. But it's the purest to me form of storytelling. So I love gag cartoonists. I pride myself on being a fairly decent gag cartoonist. I tried not to throw too many gags into that trailer I made for Nosferatu. It actually was a little more comical at first, and then I thought, well, I should probably keep the tone consistent.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you said that because I forgot to mention, and even though we're not there yet, we should mention that Nosferatu is the Kickstarter that you are here pimping today. It is the an comics adaptation of Nosferatu, of course,
Yeah,
the great is Dracula. It's basically Dracula,
yeah,
Count Dracula.
it
So
is. Yeah, it's
uh
based on Dracula, and I love the novel Dracula. Have you ever read it?
I have not. I know
Really?
that's terrible, but I haven't, and
Uh, it's dry.
it's dry.
It's
Yeah.
dry, but yeah, I love it. Love it.
I feel okay. So since we're here, I guess we'll talk. Well, no, I actually want to wait. No. We'll talk about
I,
it. Okay. So the
whatever you
Kickstarter.
want.
So okay. So what kind of, were you doing any work, for anyone else besides Dark Horse? Did you ever get work with Marvel or DC? I feel like that's everyone's, main goal in life. And I don't know if
No.
I'll ever get there at this point, but and now I don't even know if I care given the state of Marvel and DC these days. Although I am loving some of the stuff
Yeah.
that they've been doing lately.
Yeah, I hope things are on the upswing, but I probably shouldn't get started. I don't know.
So
Sean Gordon Murphy. He took
I actually do know him very well.
I met him recently, and he looked at my and I showed him my stuff, and he goes, if Marvel and DC hired a guy like you, I'd buy their books again.
That's another amazing endorsement, right?
Yeah, but you know what I can tell you real quick is that so living in Portland, who used to live here was Craig Thompson, who did blankets,
Hmm.
and I don't know where he lives now. But when I worked in animation and left comics for a little while, when I came back, the only way to like work in comics, if you want to make any money, was doing superheroes. And when I came back and started checking out the scene again, I met him a couple times at like First Thursdays and things, and I was like, "Who is this guy?" He was basically becoming really successful. This was before blankets, but he wasn't doing superheroes. And I thought, wait a minute, there's like I mean, I hate to use the word commercial, but like he was showing that you could get published. And I remember he turned down some Fantastic Four project that I think Guy Davis ended up drawing. And I was floored by that. I thought, that's the opportunity every mainstream cartoonist wants, is to finally get that job at Marvel that opens up your whatever. And he was like, nah, this isn't right for me. And I just thought, wow. So for the point is that I started thinking something I'd never thought about before, which was if I had a blank canvas, what would I put on it? As opposed to, well, I'll draw Batman and Spider-Man, and for what, not that that ever happened, but I realized I really love ghost stories, and Salem's Lot was huge for me as a kid growing up watching the miniseries and then later reading Stephen King's novel, which Stephen King's a little hit or miss for me, but Salem's Lot is still maybe arguably my favorite horror novel. And that it's interesting because it didn't occur to me until just recently that, in a sense, this is me coming around full circle with Nosferatu, because the only thing better than being able to do Salem's Lot would be Nosferatu. Only because as a kid, I remember Salem's Lot, the TV series. Parents wouldn't let me watch, and I was like, "Why?" And I knew who Dracula was, but I was like, "What is this guy with the two rat things that's supposedly a vampire?" That was different than any. They were like, "You can't watch that. That's too scary. You can watch Dracula or Frankenstein, but you can't see this thing." So it really probably ignited my interest in horror, and made me I wondered a lot, which is good for any kid's creative juices, to sit and think why, you know.
It's funny when you say the guy with the two rat teeth, because I think that I, for one, and I think many people know that image and know how horrifying it is, because I've never seen Nosferatu, and like,
Oh,
but I know that image, and it's a haunting look. Like that is like,
oh yeah.
if you want to pick like the top scary things ever, that has to be like one of the that visual has to be one of them. So we have the Nosferatu movie coming out this
Oh yeah.
Christmas. And Matt Wagner and Kelly Jones are in the middle of their second Kickstarter for the second volume of their Dracula book. So I feel that horror is very cyclical, very trendy in a way. Like,
Yeah.
it was zombies for a while, and vampires are back. I feel like they're back. So I think it's very smart that you're doing this now. The book looks great. It's funny when you talk about being a storyteller, because I had only seen your art, and that kind of was a question mark for me whether or not you had the chops to, pull off the storytelling. And the
The good,
preview you shared
good.
with me, I can tell everyone it's amazing. It looks creepy as hell. The visuals are beautiful and haunting, and it shows the amount of absolute work you put into it is dripping off of every page. So congratulations. It
Oh,
looks amazing.
wow. Thank you, Michael. That means a lot to me. I
Yeah, I hope it's a big, huge
I've been scared
success.
to show it to anybody
Yeah, I know.
for a
I know
while.
that it's funny because some of the stuff you talked about earlier, it's like art is so personal, and it's like I always wish and feel like I could be sort of that artist, is like, this is my art, fuck you, or whatever. But we do care. We care more than we should what
Hard.
people
Yeah.
think and how they react to it. And
Yeah.
the 100 people in the room, the 99 that love it, we're going to focus on the one person who didn't. And that's the sad reality of the emotional sort of mental aspect of being an artist too, right?
Of course. But not Nosferatu is kind of the Batman of, or not Nosferatu, but Dracula is kind of the Batman of horror characters. So for me, in that sense, I did feel like I was kind of picking the safe territory as something to ease people into, because I want to get real weird after this.
Yeah, it's funny you should say that too, because I know I feel like I sort of had to test the waters and sort of show people that I could make a good comic, like with my Big Bang stuff. And then like,
Mm.
because and that's very traditional superhero, so but if I did some of the stuff that I wanted to do, it's weird as fuck. So you know what I mean? It's like I don't know if I'll ever explore some of those or not, but I figure why not? I mean, as an artist, uh, especially a comic book artist, I think it's fun to scratch all the different itches. You know what I mean?
Ah,
I see a lot of uh, superhero stuff in your Instagram and stuff, and I think that's
mm.
what inspired me to reach out to you. And you're not drawing like Night Watchman and Ultiman every day, but that had to be fun, right? I mean,
Oh my
those
God.
pieces were beautiful that you did for the Big Bang book. The big anthology tribute to Big Bang Comics, full of amazing, talented artists. Todd did two great pieces, and the other one was Sheena from Berserker. Gary Carlson, the head of Big Bang, absolutely loves that depiction of Sheena. So that's always gratifying as well, you know.
Yeah, but I mean, it printed so like it just there's nothing better than a big, giant, well-designed comic and all these great people in it, and it was like, man, what an awesome book. I mean,
I know, hopefully there's still a little fanfare for that book because I feel like
yeah,
just like Big Bang itself, it's like the best kept secret. Like everyone who sees this book
mhm.
is like blown away how beautiful it is. And it did. I definitely have to, thank Eli and
Yeah, yeah,
Cosmic Lion Productions who did the book with me. Like it would not have looked as beautiful as it did without his expertise and his, craftsmanship helping me put it together. But yeah, I was like so happy how great it looks. And I'm so happy that I got two pieces out of you. So yeah, the Sheena was like really inspired. I don't even know how you pulled that off, but it's pretty amazing what you do with your art.
because you let me. I got told like you can't do that a lot at certain point, and that kept me from experimenting. And I remember when when I did it, she was her hair was pretty wild looking, and I remember thinking, I wonder if he's gonna let this pass, or if he'll tell me to change it. And I was like so relieved and excited that you were like, "That's great." And I was like, "Thank God."
Yeah, I was happy Gary liked it because I was
Yeah.
because
Well,
it
yeah.
because I mean it's undeniably gorgeous, but it's quite a take, right? So,
Yeah,
but
actually.
I mean, but don't you even have like a standee of it for for live appearances or something? So
Yeah,
I think
actually.
it's definitely, yeah, I think that I know, like one of the things that I'm happy about, if I couldn't pay everyone $1 million for
Mhm.
their work on that book, but I think it gave, a great portfolio piece for a book and a property. A Big Bang is a huge part of indie comic history. So you're
Yeah.
welcome, everybody, for that.
Yeah, I this was never confirmed, but I got a job working with Steve Aoki after that, and I kind of wonder if that was one of the main pieces that he saw that stuff and might have gotten me that Steve Aoki job because
Well,
the stuff
I,
he had it was kind of similar.
yeah, I have no problem saying it's some of the best work in your portfolio. But yeah, another interesting. You have such an interesting like career. We could honestly talk forever.
Yeah,
So then somehow you wound up working with world renowned, world famous DJ Steve Aoki. How did that come
yeah.
about?
I just got let's see, I got a message from geez, I'm blanking on their names actually. From the guys at Hero Quest, which is I'm gonna I think I've mentioned this, but I didn't know who Steve Aoki was. It's not my usual sort of music necessarily or my scene. Um, and I got a message from them asking if I wanted to work on something, and they mentioned something about a celebrity DJ and Steve Aoki, and I was like, yeah, sure. That's not. It actually sounded pretty straightforward what they're asking for me. I thought this is interesting. I started drawing it, but I had to sign all these NDAs, and then I was like, wait, what is this again? And that was when I started. I think I went to Steve's Wikipedia page and realized that he was this big celebrity, and that was pretty neat. But it was a lot of work and it was really time consuming. And the prompts they were giving me, they did some early sketches, so I was able to just sort of replicate a few sketches. But then they were coming at me like the really tough one was called. All he asked for was an AI head, and I was like, "What does that mean? I don't understand." And I forget now exactly what how they put it to try to make it, but I did a lot of designs that ended up not getting used. I drew a bunch of robots, and my initial robots were based on the Shogun Warriors, and that didn't quite work for what.
Oh my, you have to share those with me. I'd love to
Yeah,
see them.
I
I,
should.
but I mean, the Shogun Warriors what little boy didn't love that from my era anyway.
Right. I might have just been looking for an excuse to draw those guys, but yeah, so I went through a lot of different drafts of things and got pretty far along and on some of them before they were like, you know what, this isn't working, let's start over or try something else. And I was kind of surprised I pulled off a few of them. I do love drawing transformer style robots, which I had wouldn't have guessed. um but yeah, and then I got to go down to LA in, was it last, I don't know, I've been to LA a bunch of times. It was after we did a signing at Golden Apple Comics with him and Jim Kruger, who wrote Earth X and Kingdom, or you know who I'm talking about.
Yeah, Jim Kruger, of course. Yeah,
Earth,
the Earth X is his biggest thing, I think.
yeah, and there was another one that was the Justice League versus the evil versions of all those characters. That's really that's actually maybe one of my favorite things that Alex Ross has ever done, but I love all of it. And getting to know Jim was super cool, and Steve was really nice. And I'd never actually been to Golden Apple before, so that was because I'd always heard about it. Though, I mean, that's a legendary comic book store, so that was
Yeah,
cool.
it's been my comic book store since I moved to LA. So
Interesting. Yeah. So, oh, and then, but at the same time, I got a design partnership with Pop Killer. That's, I keep forgetting. But that was,
now they make T-shirts, or what do they
yes. Have you been there to their shop?
is it on Melrose?
It's in Little Tokyo.
Oh no,
I
I
don't,
haven't.
I don't know LA real well. Yeah, you should go in there.
I should for sure, yeah.
Yeah, they sell their t-shirts like records, so they put them in square bound. But they work with a lot of artists because I was like, oh, I'm gonna be in LA. Should we do a signing at the store? And they were like, no, we don't do signings because none of our artists live in the United States. they're all they're all Japanese or European. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. So it was pretty neat that I got noticed by them. But that was because I did a show in Portland last year, and I didn't sell too much. And I thought, well, I do these recreations of old Godzilla posters with Sesame Street characters, and people just can't get enough of it. And so I thought, well, I'll do one of those again. That'd probably be the smart move because I was about to do Seattle Con with my friend Adam Ivan. Shout out to Adam, my man. And anyways, I made this Big Bird versus Cookie Monster Godzilla poster, and I noticed I was getting a pretty good amount of traction on social media, but what I hadn't realized was it went viral with the amount of shares it got, and it totally exploded. And I didn't realize that until I got home, and that was when I was like, oh man, I should be selling this somehow, and I got caught off guard. And that was when Pop Killer contacted me and wanted to do T-shirts of the design, and were open to me doing any others. So I did the Big Bird versus Godzilla Cookie Monster, and then I did a Kermit the Frog versus the Count, except it's Gamera, who I love. And I have a third one that's going to be in my Nosferatu Kickstarter as an add-on, and that is it's Grover versus Cookie Monster, but it's Godzilla versus King Kong. It's total chaos.
Well, I've seen some of the other images and they're amazing, so I can imagine that will be equally as amazing. Um, uh, and of course, let's see, that you actually convinced me to make another Lady Gaga comic book.
Oh yeah.
The reason that made me think of it is because those missed viral opportunities. I had a Lady Gaga fan comic book, Going Gaga, And I mean, I only printed like 300 copies, and they were selling it like on this website for Prism Comics, this organization I was affiliated with. And
Uh,
the day after Comic-Con, the year I put it out, apparently Lady Gaga herself tweeted about it. It was like
wow.
the most amazing thing in my life ever. She tweeted, "So cool! Will someone please get this for me?" or something like that. And like my email blew up. Everyone was asking like, "How do I get this?" Da da da, whatever.
Yeah.
The place that I did it only had like 75 copies on their site, so they sold out completely. And that
Oh my,
was my that was my big moment. So I love Lady Gaga, and I did that tribute book to her, and I thought that was like a one and done. But you convinced me to do another one, and
oh
so of course I made you do the cover, and it looks amazing. Maybe I'll
yeah.
share the cover on here because I've shared it before on Facebook, but it is coming soon. I'm not exactly sure how I'm going to do it. I think I'm just going to do a small print run and do like a pre-sale for it because I have my other book to worry about too. So the
Wait,
elementals book that you
oh
contributed to as well.
yeah, yeah,
um I know, so apparently you're my bitch now that I got you for Big Bang. You've been on
yeah,
every project that I'm doing so far, and hopefully our beautiful collaborations continue because I love working with you. Like
yeah,
it's like you talk about working relationships in the industry and stuff, and we know a lot of people, and we know some of the same people, and there's a lot of nice people, but there's a lot of jerks too, who are just like unsupportive and
yeah.
unenthusiastic and negative. And so it's really nice to have the relationship that I've had with you. You've been a dream to work with. You're always super excited about my
Uh,
projects and your projects. So it's that kind of like great enthusiastic positivity in comic books that I think is like the good side of comic books right there. The excitement for the work and the projects.
yeah. Oh, definitely.
Yeah. So Nosferatu, yeah, it's clear the amount of work you've put into it. So have you been working on this for a while, quite some time now, or have you just like been diligently like putting in the work?
Depends on your definition of quite some time. I literally started around, I want to say, I started on my birthday, so June 9th. And
So that's not a lot of time for the amount of
no,
pages you have done.
and I did not have, I have wanted to jump into gothic supernatural storytelling, and literally a few I'm not exactly sure about the time frame, but I would say only a few days before that I had zero intention or it ever crossed my mind to do an Nosferatu comic. But what happened was, so I love Robert Eggers, and he's been talking about wanting Nosferatu as being his passion project for quite a while. His film The Witch was maybe I had kind of almost given up on modern horror, and The Witch brought me back in several ways. Anya Taylor-Joy is great in everything she does, but
She is.
yeah, she's sweet. But anyways, I thought, oh, maybe there's some good stuff going on here. And when I heard he wanted to do Nosferatu, I thought, oh my God, really? Like, how lucky can we get? So I just kept imagining what it would be like. Um, I so what happened though was that in June, I knew the trailer was going to be dropping here eventually, and I started asking people. I was like, "Are you excited about Nosferatu?" And I was shocked how many people said, "I have not only not aware of the new movie, but I don't know what Nosferatu is." Which is not a criticism. I was like, "Oh wow, I thought everybody knew it," but he's Dracula, but he's more obscure. And I thought to myself, well, now right now nobody knows. There are a lot of people don't know, but by September, October, November, because the film comes out on Christmas, the marketing machine and the trailer is going to come out, and everybody's going to be talking about it. And then I sat there for a second, and I thought, wait a minute. But now the big caveat, of course, was I went to the Wikipedia to find out if it was in the public domain, because you can't just make a comic about whatever you want necessarily. And it has only been in the public domain since 2019, which kind of surprised me. I just assumed Dracula has been in the public domain for a long, long time. I don't know how exactly Nosferatu wasn't, but anyways, it is now. And I thought I could do this. Um, but I also thought there was a real sense of urgency where I thought I could clear my schedule and do this over the summer, but I got to make a decision. And I think I want to say I think the only other thing I might have taken on after that was your elemental cover, maybe. I can't remember exactly what happened, but I remember almost thinking, don't think about it, just do it. Because I remember thinking, I bet this is going to be a lot of work. And also I had no idea how it was going to get published. I mean, I thought I'll try to find a publisher, but I just thought I'm going to figure that out later. And so, June 9th up until late August is when I started going, okay, I got to figure out how this is going to get published. I have no idea how to shop a book around exactly. And I kept thinking to myself, it'd be easier if a publisher picked this up, but I would love to do crowdfunding. And of course, I had not done it before, but I'd been interacting with people, specifically you, where I was really paying attention. My friend Jesse Blaze Snyder, if you know him,
Mm.
somebody else that does crowdfunding and is really good at it. His dad's the singer of Twisted Sister.
Oh yeah, you had mentioned him. That's so
Yeah,
awesome. I love that.
Jesse's rad. Jesse's my pal. But anyways, but I was paying very quiet, close attention and thinking I should try this sometime. So in September, I thought I got to make a decision here because otherwise, what my fear was, I was very happy with how the book was turning out because I wasn't sure I was gonna be like, early August, and I was gonna be like, oh my God, what have I done? Uh, but I thought, this is kind of more or less what I thought, and the things that aren't working for me, I'm figuring out how to fix them. I don't mean to be all over the place here, but one of the things that I was Count Orlok himself, as he's called in the film, as opposed to Dracula, but even though they're the same character, drawing him was really tricky. And there were times when I was drawing him, and I thought, this looks stupid.
I was gonna say there must be like he just the way he looks, you have to be careful where he would look really goofy or something. Yeah.
Uh, And one of the cool things about digital, besides being able to edit and go back and start over without too much fuss, is that a lot of drawing that I do is with a black background and a white brush. And so when something wasn't giving me that vibe I wanted, I was like, okay, I'm going to draw him in reverse. And I didn't even
Mm-hmm.
necessarily know that's what I was doing, but in like the cover line art, if you look at it, when I kept trying to take that image. This might be confusing, but I kept trying to take that image and put it on other things. And I thought, why is this not working? It works here, but it doesn't work other places. And I realized I had intuitively drawn it as like a reverse photograph almost.
Mm.
Um, but that's what you want, as opposed to um, yeah, what I want is atmosphere, and there's no better film for atmosphere than Nosferatu. I mean, it is an icon of expressionism and silent film. It's a perfect example of showing it instead of telling it. Everything a comic book artist should be after. I'm also a giant David Mazzucchelli fan, and of course, Batman Year One came out, so I was poring over that. That was really inspirational. But I always thought Mazzucchelli was a big silent film fan and had paid attention. Oh, he was a big expressionism fan as well. And I thought, I want to lean in that direction and just try to like make the stuff as emotional as possible. And there's been some real drawing challenges in it. You can try to replicate or copy what's on the screen, but I mean, I changed all the actors so that they don't look like the people in the film. Um, I'll give you a spoiler. Do you know? So Renfield in He's
Yes.
like Dracula's familiar. So in Nosferatu, his name is Knock. And he kind of looks like Mr. Hooper from Sesame Street.
Oh, I love that.
In the film, but I drew him. I based him on the actor who played Saw.
Hmm.
So as an example of like me going that I can't pull that out. That looks great in the movie, but it's gonna look goofy if I try to do it. So I'm gonna go in a different direction. Um,
Yeah, I think it's like kind of a daunting task. I think you've managed to maintain a creepy and consistent tone throughout, so it looks great. But it's like I remember like some of the Marvel adaptions of comic books. And now that I know what I know, like a
I
lot of
love
them were taken on just for the money because Jim Shooter wanted to pay the bills. But some of them are so boring. It's like, do we need an Annie comic book adaptation? I mean, like it just
yeah.
didn't read that exciting. You know what I mean? But
I never saw Annie. I'm totally gonna find that.
how dare you? No, I'm just kidding.
I love Annie,
But
but
I think
it takes place at Christmas, not Fourth of July.
so. How do you handle that, or how did you handle that? You're basing it off the book and the movie, and obviously, so you're changing the actors. What else are you changing? Are you changing anything story wise to fit like the pacing better? Or obviously,
Yeah.
you have to do things like that. But how did you approach it, and what was your philosophy like for what you wanted to bring to the page?
Well, so there's an what should have been an obvious challenge that I didn't even realize I was taking on at the time, and that is it's a silent film, so there's no dialogue. And as I started laying it out, um, so I watched the film once just to sort of absorb it, and then I watched it immediately, started it over, and started taking notes. And that was when I started going, "Don't think about it, just do it," because I was starting to get a little. I was like, "This is a lot longer. There's a lot more here than I expected." But I started dawning on me that I was either going to have to make up the dialogue because there's all kinds of talking that's not there's only a few cue cards really in it, but otherwise you got to figure out what they're saying. Or so I was trying to make the art look like a silent film, and I thought, well, should I make a silent comic? And I pretty much right away was like, I don't think that's gonna work.
Oh,
So
people would feel gypped.
yeah, maybe somebody could pull it off, but I'm not that person. uh,
Hmm.
But what I did do is, so I went back and took what dial. I found an old script. I don't know if it's legitimate, but so I was like, I wonder if there's actually a script for this film with dialogue. I found something online. It's the problem is that it's all translated by German, and so some of it, like one point, the Ellen character points out the window and says, "This is how I see it every night," which I think means that this is what I see every night. But I kind of
Hmm.
like the broken translation of it.
Hmm.
But what I'm doing is filling in the gaps with the novel Dracula. So I'm using actual. I love the dialogue in Dracula. I think that there's like one of the first quotes he says when he meets Harkness is when he arrives at his castle is, uh, um, "Welcome to my home. Enter freely of your own will and leave." Oh, now I'm botching it. "And leave behind some of the happiness that you bring," or something like that. But it's so eloquent, and I just thought,
And cryptic, leave behind some of the
oh
happiness.
yeah,
Damn, like
yeah. And the brides aren't in this, but the brides taunt him at one point, and they're like, "You've never loved," and he's like, "Oh yes, I have." It's really interesting. It hints at a lot of things, but anyways, um, the
is it finished? How far along are you? Like, do you have a lot to go on it, or is it just like polishing it at this point? Or
No, I have drawing to finish still, but everything is laid out. It's 118 pages, and I did have to map everything out to make sure, like I couldn't make it up as I went along. I had to figure out, I had to see how it read and got far along enough that it was kind of a no-brainer to finish it, to know how everything was going to work. And also I started thinking, because there's a couple of spots in the film that don't work for me. So I omitted one scene where they find a bunch of rats in a coffin, and then they for some reason decide to put it on the ship anyways, and then are surprised. So I was like, okay, I'm not going to do that. That's just because I just think I couldn't figure out how to make the scene interesting. But the other is the Knock character is really interesting to me. Um, there's this whole wild goose chase at the end where he escapes from the asylum and the villagers chase him around for a really long time. That's not from, I don't know where they got that from or what the purpose of the scene was, but they capture him again and don't even show it. They just come back and they're like, oh, we got him, it's fine. And then like the character ends up wasting time and not serving a lot of purpose. So, and the book was getting overly long. So I thought I'm going to take out that whole scene because I did storyboard and lay out that entire scene. And then I thought that's got to go. So what I did is I replaced it with the scene from Dracula from the novel, where because in the novel Dracula arrives and murders him in his cell, and I've always that was a scene that scared me even as a kid in the different versions I saw. So I thought that's an easier way to truncate things. Um, this is a weird thing to add as well, but I had this strange, I couldn't quite, I know I'm going to stick to the basic ending, but I did have this one question about exactly how it would end. And I will simply say that one of my influences for the book is the old Disney film, The Black Hole. And I watched that and was like, oh, got it.
That's so funny. I think I actually, it was speaking of weird comic adaptations, I know 100% that I had the Black Hole comic book, and I know
Ooh.
also that I don't have it because it's like one of my
Huh.
earliest or comics, and it probably got ripped up and like ruined easily. But
Yeah.
that would be great. That's a movie I haven't seen in a long time. You're making me want. That's what I love about talking to artists and creative people. It's like you're making me want so many things. Like I want to go watch Nosferatu. I want to read Dracula. I want to go watch The Black Hole again.
Yeah.
There's a lot of great stuff out there. So I'm so excited
Yeah.
about your Kickstarter. It should be, I'm gonna release this, so that people can actually have a link to go to because I hate getting people excited about something and being like, if you remember in a month, come back and, follow this Kickstarter because our attentions are so, divided that we need instant gratification.
Mm. That's
So
the world we live in now,
it
unfortunately.
is. It is.
Yeah.
Oh, but I think that having like doing a Kickstarter, is a risky proposition, especially there seems to be a lot of Kickstarters going on. But I think having like a known property attached to it, like Nosferatu, like people, it makes people a little like, oh yeah, that's a cool story, that's a cool property, so it instantly grabs people's attention that way. So, and then once they see the stunning visuals, and you have some fun perks and some add-ons like with the Sesame Street versus Godzilla. I mean, that alone should be appealing to many people. I mean, obviously you said you went viral with that, and um
Yeah, I mean, the goal, like it or not, the goal, as they say, is to stop the scroll. You know what I mean? Because somebody has to stop and click on and be like, "Oh, I want to see more of this." And um, as those things are really fun to draw, but they just stop the scroll, whether I like it or not. When I was at conventions and I would bring those, people would be walking by and they'd stop and they'd look and they'd back up and come back, and they'd be like, "What's that?"
mhm.
And I just thought, all right, I guess this is what people love. I should love it more because I actually enjoy it. But I never in a million years thought they would choose that over Batman or Spider-Man prints or something. But whatever, that's cool. I'm all
Well,
for
good art is good art, and you are
yeah.
one of the goodest artists that I know. So, I'm so proud of you. I'm very excited for your Kickstarter. I know it's going to be a huge success. you can come back and we can talk about whatever the hell else you want to talk about, whatever we're doing next, or Lady Gaga, or Elementals, or your next Kickstarter. Do you see this as a series? Do you want to explore
Oh,
more of
yeah.
Nosferatu, or do you have other
No,
things in mind?
I don't think that there's so I have two spiritual follow-ups that I'd like to do that I'll tell you privately, but I probably shouldn't announce anything yet. But we'll see. I mean, I'd like this to be successful enough that it gives me an excuse to do two more. But yeah, there's I don't think that I don't think there's a Nosferatu 2 out there. If there is, I don't know. That's a story I don't have in my head.
Yeah,
Although
I think we're learning our lesson from Joker 2. There doesn't need to be a Nosferatu.
they should have made a good movie out of that. That was
They
unfortunate.
should have. That you have all the ingredients, and you just oversalt the soup or something. I don't know what they did wrong, but I haven't seen it.
Yeah,
I'm not in a hurry to.
and Terrifier 3 comes out and kicks its ass. How ironic
I,
that.
I
Wow.
know there are certain things like that in history that will like I think when Evita came out, like
Mm.
the horror movie The Relic beat it at the box office, and Madonna was completely
Oh, wow.
beside herself. So,
Huh.
you're gonna have that, but whatever. It is what it
Yeah.
is. What do we know as the consumer horse that we are, with
Yeah.
no discerning taste?
Yeah. Well, no, I don't know. I think sometimes it's giving the fans what they want. And
True.
with Joker 2, all I can say is whether it's I never saw it, but it's not what the fans wanted. And it's just the Joker. I mean, come on. Just give him what
Yeah, exactly.
start with something else. Or whatever. But yeah, but like but the in between follow up that I'd like to do immediately after this, I would like to really delve into book design as well as stories and all that. So my next story that I want to delve into would be shorter and taller and skinnier as a design, and it's a story about David Bowie meeting a ghost in a Victorian salt mine.
Oh my God, I love it. My
Yeah,
birthday is
like I
January
said,
8th.
get weird. Oh, okay.
It's David Bowie and Elvis's shared birthday. Isn't that
Yeah.
crazy? So hopefully his
Wow.
birthday makes a point in the story. But
Yeah.
anything David Bowie is exciting.
Yeah.
You are on a great trajectory, Todd Blackwood. I mean, you have so many great things happening. Your contribution to the Big Big Bang anthology is like some of the best stuff in there. Your collaboration with Pop, what is it?
Oh, Pop Killer. Right,
Pop
right.
Killer.
Yeah.
Your work with Steve Aoki, and now your little baby coming out and flourishing on Kickstarter as we speak. Speaking of Kickstarters, uh, Jason Pearson's Body Bags Artist Editions
Right.
Kickstarter is currently running as well. I cannot wait to contribute to that because I
Yeah.
love artist editions. I was going to ask you,
No, it's
did you
fun.
get? Have you seen the David Mazzucchelli Batman Year One Artist Edition?
Oh, of course.
Uh,
It's
Amazing, right?
right.
Yeah.
God. Yeah, that brought back so many memories. Yeah.
I know it's gorgeous. It really is.
I know I was wondering, I was like, are they ever gonna do some sort of artist edition? So obviously they were sitting on it or whatever. Um yeah, I'd forgotten how Mazzucchelli's so ingrained as far as inspiration for or whatever, here artistic heroes that I almost take it for granted. But especially watching him pivot and switch gears and just go, okay, I'm gonna go over here and do this now, and um, walking away from a superhero career to make art and do covers for the New Yorker and but his acting, like, yeah, I can't say enough about it. Getting to see those pages finally, man.
Well, I have to say, like, as far as walking away from comics, as much as it hurts us as fans, the comics industry as a whole is never going to love you as much as you love it. So you got to
Yeah,
do what you have to do to make yourself happy.
sure. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I wish he'd done 4 more issues of Batman though.
Wouldn't that be the gag of like, I know, it's like That would really top frickin' Jim Lee and Jeff Loeb coming back to do
Oh,
Hush 2. If David Mazzucchelli did like another Batman, that people would lose their minds for sure. And
oh
it
yeah,
could happen. It could still happen. Right? But he did the greatest Batman story ever. So he's probably happy with that. So
yeah.
I when I talk to artists, I always say, and I know you do too, because I saw you turn Night Watchman into Batman. But we no matter how like much attached we are to our own properties and our own comics and everything else, I think any one of us would drop everything we're doing to go do Batman right now.
Yeah. It,
Right.
yeah, I think anybody who says they wouldn't is probably not telling the truth.
I agree.
But that's why it's fun to do fan art, because
Hmm.
way you get to do it the way you want to. I see these redesigns of his costume sometimes, and I just think, please don't make me draw that.
I know some of them are so fun.
Yeah,
Mm.
but I don't know. It's cool. I, I
Well,
I hope mainstream comics gets their shit together. But
I
meanwhile,
think they are like this Batman, Absolute Batman is killing it. The All In is good. The X-Men are having a rebirth. I say when the X-Men are doing well, the industry is doing well because it
yeah,
rings true. Word out of New York Comic Con is that the attendance was amazing and that people are
good.
really excited and the buzz is good.
Yeah,
So um, I'm
that
hanging in
good.
for dear life and I'm going to keep making comics until I drop. And I hope you do too because
Yep,
uh,
we're
because
in it
we
together.
we make good comics.
Yeah, maybe you can do a divine comic eventually.
That is on our list, people. Yeah, I know that would be sublime for sure. Yeah, I need to work harder to make that happen because that would be just like an iconic collector's piece, don't you think? Like, I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
as a fan, I want that. I want the big divine anthology done by you and all my roster of talented artists. Come on, people, let's get on board
Yeah, that would be a dream come true.
for sure. Well, I don't think we can top talking about Divine, so I think we'll wrap it up here.
All right.
It was so great to finally talk to you. If you want, I'll do the outro, but you can hang around for a second so we can say a proper goodbye. But
Sure.
is there any, of course, I'm going to link how to reach you through Instagram, Facebook. The Kickstarter campaign will all be linked in the description of the video so people can definitely contribute to that. I have a few loyal viewers who contribute to practically everything that I recommend. So you'll get a little traction out of that. But like I said, is there anything you want to add here or tell us before we wrap it up today, Todd?
No, I think we covered it. Kickstarter for Nosferatu launches on Tuesday, October 29th. So yeah, and it'll get finished up pretty quick and ship in February. So at least that's what I'm planning. Maybe earlier. Uh,
Awesome.
so yeah, look,
Just in time for Halloween.
yeah, very intentional timing.
All right,
Yeah,
guys. Well, you'll
awesome.
see some of the preview art in this video, and you'll just know how amazing it is. So rush right out to that link and contribute to Todd's Kickstarter because he deserves the attention. He's amazingly talented, and it's going to be a gorgeous book. The preview is just drop dead and stunning. So thank you, Todd, for being here. Thanks, everyone, for
Thank you.
watching. You're
Yeah, we'll do it
welcome.
again.
Subscribe to, yeah, we definitely will do it again. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Hit like, and I'll bring y'all more soon. Thanks, guys.
Awesome.